World Cup 2022. How Adams burned out in the round of 16 against the Dutch. That evening in Doha, the air was sticky as spilled soda, and the stadium smelled of freshly cut grass and the expensive cologne of FIFA officials. Have you ever wondered why, in the round of 16 against the Netherlands in 2022, the United States team suddenly turned into a pale shadow of its former self? The answer is as prosaic and unpleasant as sand in boots. It was a quiet scandal within the coaching staff. Key players were simply overwhelmed. Tyler Adams, the tireless, serious-faced Bournemouth captain, along with McKennie and Musa, had literally carried the midfield by their bootstraps throughout the group stage. By the decisive clash, their gas tank wasn't just empty, it was dry and cracked. Due to the lack of rotation, this trio, nicknamed the MMA unit by fans, simply burned out. They couldn't maintain the momentum. They simply couldn't lift their legs. This cost the Americans a historic chance to advance, and the locker room after the whistle was so silent you could hear the dripping of the shower. Insiders and rumpled jackets are now whispering in corners that this very failure became the starting point for developing a plan for 2026. The national team staff finally realized the top team scouts had long ago figured out their main trick. Adams has been a starter since 2021, and his ability to dig into the ball is the only key to survival against the elite. Now they've launched a complex game, trying to deceive everyone around them. They're looking for a shadow backup for their leader to hide their captain's physical vulnerability. While the experts in the studios chew over old grudges, something else is brewing behind closed doors. The national team is disguising its intentions, turning Adams' fatigue into a smokescreen before a home tournament. The failure of 2022 forced the staff to play the game in the shadows. When rumors began circulating in 2025 that Tyler Adams would miss part of training camp due to old injuries, his knee had begun to ache again in the weather. Many were quick to write the team off. But this moment proved the perfect cover. Johnny Cardozo was brought to the forefront. He is being promoted as the perfect sixer, the only backup. In reality, Cardozo's appearance is a pure tactical maneuver designed to throw foreign intelligence off the scent. Cardozo is trying hard, sweating in training, even tying his shoelaces a bit too carefully. While the newspapers discuss his potential, Coach Arena, who took the helm again in 2024, is preparing a surprise. Listen, one of the assistants said one day in the base's hallway, nervously twirling a paper cup in his hands, "Everyone's looking at Johnny. That's the plan." Meanwhile, Tyler is learning to kill in a different way. The real plan is under wraps. Adams is being trained in a special tactic for Brazil and France. It's a system of interceptions under extreme pressure, where the opponent doesn't even have time to realize the ball has already gone the other way. The staff deliberately creates the illusion of dependence on one weak player. It's strange, even a little ridiculous, to build a strategy on feigning weakness, but worse has happened in football. The funniest thing about this scheme is the disinformation campaign. In interviews, the coaches praise the captain only for his defensive skills. The whole world is supposed to believe that Adams is just a watchdog, a run-of-the-mill wrecker who only knows how to take the ball and pass it on to his neighbors. In fact, they're awakening his hidden attacking potential. While Cardoso serves as a distraction, an invisible champion killer is being forged in closed training. His appearance on the field in 2026 should be a fatal surprise for his opponents. The main thing is that his knee doesn't give out at the most inopportune moment, when the stands will be filled with an unimaginable roar. While the world stares at flashy magazine covers and discusses Pulisic's haircut, a completely different story is unfolding behind the high fences of the training grounds, where the smell of wet concrete and cheap energy drinks fills the air. Since 2024, Bruce Arena, the old fox who has once again taken control of the helm, has been playing a strange game. He's been holding private sessions with Tyler Adams, unbeknownst to even some of the first-team players. These aren't just training sessions, there's some kind of sectarian drill. Insiders, the same guys smoking in the corner of the dressing rooms, say Arena makes Tyler watch footage of the goals he missed against the Dutch in 2022 100 times. "Look," he says, "you were half a second late here, and that's it, we're going home." This entire process is designed for one frighteningly simple thing: a lightning-fast interception in an area where no one expects it. Adams, the Bournemouth captain, a guy who usually doesn't mince his words, is now suspiciously silent. He's deliberately hidden from the cameras. When journalists come at him with microphones, he's escorted out the back door, past crates of rotten apples. Flaxes. Meanwhile, Johnny Cardozo, poor fellow, plows in front of the lenses, posing as the hope of the nation. Cardozo is a great guy. He tries, he runs his kilometers honestly, but he's just decoration. False target. While rival intelligence is writing reports about Johnny, Adams is learning to turn into a shadow in a closed hangar. Tyler, one more time. Arena grumbles, chewing mint gum. If you don't take this ball away from Mbappe before he feels it, you can go straight to work at McDonald's. This is a risk. Wild risk. The Americans have a hole in midfield the size of the Grand Canyon. And if this plan fails, they will be eaten alive. But they are building an invisible wall. Imagine, 2026, the stadium is roaring so loudly that your ears are blocked. Kylian or Neymar are already seeing themselves in the headlines. And then bam, there is no ball. Adams simply stole it like a subway pickpocket, leaving the football stars standing there with their mouths open. This is not a tactic. This is a mathematical mockery of talent. The captain's hidden potential is the last cartridge in the arena's clip, which he saves for the very moment when the president sits in the stands. But defensive preparation is just the tip of the iceberg, and one that has already begun to melt. The real buzz starts when it comes to number 9. It actually smells like some kind of paperback spy novel. After the attack of the United States national team in 2022 looked as if the players had forgotten which way to hit, the headquarters took a desperate step. In May 2023, they quietly naturalized Folarin Balogun, the star for Monaco, the guy who scored more than 15 goals in the French Championship in 2025, came to save the situation. But look at his statistics in the national team. 3 goals. Just 3. What's wrong with him? Experts whisper in the studios, straightening their ties. Has he forgotten how to hit the goal as soon as he puts on a t-shirt with stars? In fact, this is a grandiose performance. Balogun is deliberately kept on a starvation diet, turning him into a secret trump card. This is a feigned weakness, a wounded beast tactic that Arena bought from the old masters. This whole circus with rare calls and slurred play is only needed so that the coaches of Paraguay and Australia in the D group relax and start picking their noses. The opponents must think that the host's main striking force is simply a paper tiger hyped up by the press. While they study dry numbers and laugh at his mistakes, in closed camps Balogun practices completing attacks with his eyes closed. This is a total camouflage tactic. They create the illusion of toothlessness in order to release a machine that knows no pity onto the field at the right moment. When the home World Cup trap finally slams shut, it will be too late. Opponents will make their fatal mistake by underestimating the guy from Monaco, and he will simply do his job. And while the stands are going crazy, Arena on the bench will simply adjust his glasses and, perhaps, for the first time in a long time, allow himself to smile. The main thing is that this plan does not crumble like a house of cards from one random rebound or extra mustard plaster. This whole story with Folarin Balogun is beginning to resemble a poorly rehearsed performance in a provincial theater where the actors overact, but the audience is still afraid to leave before the intermission. While sports newspapers, stained with coffee stains, are wondering why their main golden boy suddenly stopped hitting goals, something much more cynical is happening on the sidelines of the national team. This is not a drought. This is deliberate sabotage of one's own statistics. Remember the 15th of June, 2023, Nations League semi-final against Mexico. Balogun walked onto the field as if he owned the stadium, and 3 days later, on June 18th, in the final against Canada, he scored his first goal. Then it seemed that the Americans had finally found their messiah, who brought them a victory with a score of 2-0 and a second title in a row. But then the tap was turned off. In 2025, while he was scoring more than 15 goals per season in his Monaco, making the French defenders cry in the locker rooms, there was a void in the team's protocols. 3 goals. Just 3 measly goals over a huge period. Folarin, you did it again, the assistant coach whispers when a striker deliberately shoots high in training. Missed too beautifully. Next time, try to miss the blow and make it look completely idiotic. This is the very plan to lull vigilance, which will not be written about in the official previews for the Home World Championship in 2026. Rivals in the D group look at these numbers, scratch their heads, and order an extra portion of beer, thinking that a paper tiger will come out against them. But behind the closed gates of the training bases, somewhere in the wilderness, where the only sounds are the chirping of cicadas and the creaking of a rusty gate, Balogun plows like hell. There are no cameras there. There's a lot they're old, angry veterans of the major leagues, guys with battered knees and scarred eyebrows, who don't spare him in their tackles. They simulate his worst nightmare for him, defending the world's top teams, where they poke your Achilles tendons and breathe fumes down your neck. While the whole world watches his clumsy attempts in friendlies, here he learns to pierce a defense made of 3 layers of concrete. Sometimes the mask slips. On November 16, 2025, in a match against Paraguay, there was a glitch in this total camouflage system. Balogun apparently forgot he was supposed to be playing the role of a log and unleashed that crazy left-footed shot. The ball flew through the thicket of legs so quickly that the goalkeeper didn't even flinch. The result, 2-1 for the Americans, and a moment of confusion on the bench. Arena merely nervously adjusted his cap, glancing at the stands. Were too many people watching? This demonstratively low profile is a direct reaction to the ghost of Anthony Robinson in 2022. Back then, the staff overloaded its leaders so much that by the crucial games, the team resembled an away team. Now Balogun is being hidden. He's swathed in the cotton wool of bad statistics, pulled away from journalists when they try to ask about his poor form. He's a secret champion killer who must remain invisible until the playoffs of 2026. During training, he sometimes stops, wipes sweat with a dirty t-shirt, and looks at the empty stands. Somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower hums. One more time. The coach commands, tossing him a new ball, one that has long since lost its marketable appearance. And Balogun goes dribbling again against 3 tough guys, knowing that his true triumph will only begin when the global media finally writes him off. This isn't football. It's a game of hide and seek, where the price of a mistake isn't a missed goal, but a prematurely revealed trump card up the sleeve of a cunning old fox. While the pundits in the studios debate his psychological problems, Follerin is simply waiting for the moment when he can stop missing. And that moment will come precisely when the giants of world football relax, looking at his laughable 3-goal statistic. All this fuss about the 2026 World Cup squad is just the tip of the iceberg, beneath which lies a rather clumsy, but frighteningly effective lie. While fans and bars debate the form of their leaders, the flanks of the American team are turning into instruments of global deception. Remember Qatar 2022? Then Christian Pulisic, our untouchable number 10, and Tim Weah literally spat out their lungs to pull the team out of the group. It was heroism bordering on stupidity. Lacking rotation for the knockout stages, they were shadows of their former selves, pale, squeezed lemons with sore muscles. In 2025, the arena staff decided enough was enough. They launched what looks like a protracted captain's crisis. Pulisic is constantly being yanked around, replaced by Aronson, and played for a paltry 15 minutes. Analysts in the studios are drooling, discussing Christian's loss of spark and psychological breakdown. But it's just a smokescreen, reeking of cheap tobacco and sweaty kit. Christian, take longer to tie your laces. Even longer, grumbles the assistant, glancing at the stopwatch. We need them to believe you're tired even before the warm-up. Pulisic merely smiles wryly, adjusting his sock. He's being kept in a strict energy-saving mode, like an old iPhone with a dead battery, save for just one important call. While the attention of the opposition scouts is focused on his poor performance, something far more cynical is happening in the shadows, behind the high fences of the training grounds. Where there's no signal and the smell of freshly cut, damp grass fills the air, Tim Weah is being reborn. They're training him not just to run along the touchline. They're shaping him to be a cool-headed executioner of counterattacks. While Christian feigns fatigue, Weah and Balogun, in complete isolation, are perfecting their combinations to the point of automatism. These aren't the pretty passes you see in the simulators. This is dirty, hard work. A dash, a shot, a collision, a curse. The core that has carried the national team since 2021 is now being deliberately used as bait. In closed sessions, Weah practices the same maneuver hundreds of times. His task is to destroy the defenses of Turkey or Paraguay in Group D. These teams watch footage of friendlies from 2025 and see the disunity. They see Weah seemingly holding onto the ball too long, while Balogun looks the other way. Way off again, Timmy, the coach shouts, even though the ball nearly rips through the net. You'll do the same in the game. Let them think you've forgotten how to shoot. It's a strategy of total conservation that turns familiar flanks into invisible weapons. This entire tactical spectacle of rotation is a masterpiece. Aronson runs around like a clockwork, creating noise, while Pulisic stores up rage and oxygen in his muscles. Insiders whisper that the pairing of Weah and the naturalized forward from Monaco is a mathematically calculated plan to dismantle any defense. When the trap snaps shut in 2026, it will be too late. The Turks and Paraguayans will take to the field against a disassembled team, only to encounter two athletes who have spent the last year and a half building up their strength for this moment. Weah on the left flank will become an executioner, whose secret preparations no analytics program will detect. A heavy silence sometimes hangs in the national team's locker room. The only sound is the hum of an old refrigerator stocked with isotonic drinks. The players know the truth. They know that their poor form is the most valuable commodity they can sell to the world before a domestic tournament. Pulisic looks at his boots, still grimy from his last away game, and understands. When the time comes, his freshness will come as a shock to the favorites. This won't be just football, but a moment when masks are dropped, and the fury of those written off too early will scorch the grass in stadiums from Los Angeles to New York. 60 or even 80 matches of this epic marathon won't be enough for the opponents to realize how they were duped, using simple laziness and feigned fatigue as their trump card. This whole captain's armband affair isn't just a bureaucratic hiccup. It's a performance for idiots, staged to perfection in the half-empty corridors of training facilities. While the press wonders why Christian Pulisic hasn't yet been officially declared a captain, a quiet revolution is taking place in the dressing room. The real sensation is buried deeper. Arena and Berhalter's staff is deliberately stalling, planning to hand over the armband to Christian only after the final draw in 2026. This isn't indecision. It's tactical camouflage. In reality, the hierarchy has long since cracked, and Tim Weah has slipped through. While Christian poses for sponsors, Tim wipes his sweat in the shadows of the locker room and says things to the guys that make their jaws ache. "Timmy, did you take my isotonic again?" grumbles one of the younger guys, probably Scully. "Drink water, Joe." Weah snaps, without even turning around. "You still have 3 extra miles to work today." And Scully silently goes to get some water. That's real power. Since 2021, Weah has been steadily assuming the role of mentor, while the cameras are focused on Milan's golden boy. Weah is the heart that beats to the rhythm of the heavy bass, while Pulisic remains the official face behind the scenes. Group D rivals like Paraguay and Australia are setting traps for Christian, but they have no idea they're facing a leader they've been deliberately keeping in the role of number 2 for a year and a half. He's the detonator. When this abscess bursts in 2026, fans in Italy will be shocked. Their addition to the star will turn out to be the one who truly holds the team by the throat. But that's only half the truth. The second part of the deception concerns someone they try to keep out of the spotlight altogether, Gio Reyna. His debut in 2021 against Bosnia now seems like a child's play compared to what they've turned him into now. There are inside rumors that Reyna is literally being mothballed until the very last aid of 2026. He won't start in the group, they whisper behind the scenes. Even if we're in trouble. And what if he rusts? He won't rust. He's as mean as a dog. It's a cold, almost surgical calculation. The staff remembers 2022, when the team simply fell apart in a match against the Netherlands because of empty fuel tanks in the center of the field. Now everything is different. Reyna's breakthrough in 2024 and 2025 helped plug the holes, but they decided to use his talent as a secret code to be introduced into the system only in the playoffs. While the world's media chews over rumors of his poor form, Gio, on the indoor pitches of the major leagues, is practicing a single metric: total control. The goal is 60% possession in knockout matches. It sounds boring until you see him, in a silence broken only by the chirping of cicadas and the coach's whistle, repeatedly delivering passes that slice through the defense like an old knife through melted butter. Coach Arena personally monitors his every move, sometimes interrupting the process for something trivial, like a shoelace tied incorrectly or a ball bouncing too high. There, in this artificial isolation, a killer is being forged for the weary favorites. When the greats of world football are exhausted by the heat and the pace of the last 16, a fresh Reina, who has spent the last 2 years pent-up rage, will take the field. This isn't just football, it's a mathematical mockery of the tournament's logic. While everyone is staring at Pulisic's armband, the real death knell for the top teams has already been signed and hidden away in a safe until the right moment. The stands in Los Angeles will be noisy, but in Reina's head at that moment there will be an absolute, a ringing silence. The silence before a strike no one will notice. All this talk about shocking tactics is for those accustomed to watching football via short highlights on their phones. In reality, the lists Arena presents seem like a deliberate mockery of common sense. While the studio experts are drooling, demanding that more spearheads be included in the roster, the staff of the United States national team is quietly dismantling the usual formulas. The decision to limit the final list to just 23 names isn't a matter of space saving. It's a surgical amputation of all unnecessary details. Why do we need 4 forwards if we're not going to play crosses? Grumbles one of the analysts in training camp, stirring his cold coffee. And it's true. The entire plan hinges on one insane maneuver: the deliberate abandonment of pure strikers in favor of creating an overload in the center. Gio Reyna and Malik Tillman are now officially 5th midfielders. It sounds crazy until you see them on the field together. The key figure here is Malik Tillman. If you recall 2022, his performance in Qatar was like a protracted disaster. He looked lost, heavy, as if he were wearing lead boots. But what happened at Dutch club PSV between 2025 and 2025 isn't just progress. It's a complete personality rebuild. Tillman is no longer just a promising guy. In Eindhoven, he learned to feel the breath of others on his back. Malik, you're falling back to the right flank again. The assistant coach snaps at him during a closed session. The center is empty. Tillman nods silently, wiping his face with the hem of his t-shirt, which is now darkened with sweat and smells of wet grass. Inside sources confirm, since 2024, Tillman and Reyna have been under the Arena's tightest lid, the likes of which even Secret Service agents have never dreamed of. Their training sessions on Major League Soccer fields take place behind closed doors, where the only sound is the dull thud of the ball and the hum of a faulty light pole. There, they perfect a single metric: possession of over 60%, even if they face a pack of hungry wolves in world champions uniforms. This is a clear revelation of how the Americans intend to smother the favorites. They won't counterattack. They will simply take the ball and hold it until the opponent starts cramping. Tillman is the key link here. While Reyna is being kept in the backfield like a fine wine for a special occasion, Malik must become the shield that covers Tyler Adams's vulnerability. Adams, for all his toughness, has a physical limit, a kind of warranty period that expires by the 70th minute. Tillman and Reyna must turn the center of the field into an impassable quagmire. The shocking tactic is that this duo won't simply replace tired leaders. They will come out to kill the game. When the world's greats look at the scoreboard in the last 16 matches of 2026, they will see a fresh Tillman, who over the past 2 years has learned to be everywhere at once. It's a mathematical mockery. While everyone remembers his lackluster performances in 2022, he has become a universal killer. The entire chronology of his development, from the failure in Qatar to the total upgrade of 2025, was no accident. It was a trap being laid. When, at the crucial moment of the playoffs, the opposing team's intelligence discovers that their data is 3 years out of date, it will be too late. The stands in Los Angeles will be buzzing, and in midfield, Tillman will methodically, pass after pass, reduce the defense of any defending champion to rubble. Without fanfare, without unnecessary movements, simply with the composure of a man who knows exactly where the system's weak points are. All this meticulous work in midfield and Tillman's tactical rebirth are just the tip of the iceberg, the visible part that is fed to the public. The real game is played where the air smells not of freshly mown grass, but of old paper and cold coffee from a vending machine. While fans argue over the arena's plans, in the dim offices of the United States State Department, folders containing the secret sports diplomacy manual have been methodically shuffling since 2018. This isn't just a set of protocols for cocktail parties. It's a plan to transform the 2026 World Cup into an instrument of hardline geopolitics, where visa barriers are used instead of tackling. They've got another hitch in their lists, says the clerk, adjusting his glasses. Half of the Iranian technical staff isn't eligible for security reasons. What a shame, replies his colleague, not looking up from his monitor. Let them file an appeal. We'll schedule it just in time for the final. Under this quiet, bureaucratic crunch, the delegations of more than 12 countries were hit. Iran, Afghanistan, and several other inconvenient regions, their players, doctors, and loyalists, were all hit. The fans suddenly discovered that the administrative wall is taller than any stadium. This is a cynical cleansing of space. Sterile, almost greenhouse-like conditions are being created for the United States national team. While others are trying to prove that their masseur isn't an intelligence agent, the arena's charges will sleep peacefully in their bases. Their status as sole hosts of key stages allowed the Americans to take 60 of the tournament's 80 matches. This isn't hospitality, it's a logistical trap. While the world's favorites pace the country, suffocated by endless flights between time zones and trying to sleep to the roar of jet engines, the Americans will maintain a frightening freshness. Have you seen their schedule? They whisper on the sidelines of FIFA. Are they even planning on leaving their home state? Why would they? They've got it all under control. This administrative resource is as much fuel for the players as grueling training sessions. But there's another side to it. This whole political ploy is also a way to settle old scores. Remember 2022? Back then, political tensions resulted in a humiliating advantage for Qatar in behind-the-scenes affairs. The United States scored just 8 influence points to Qatar's 14. But what looked like a failure at the time turned out to be a protracted hoax. For several years, the national team diligently pretended to be a lame duck, languishing at the bottom of the rankings without raising any concerns. This cool maneuver allowed them to avoid the groups of death and snag the perfect group of life for the home tournament. In the new format, with 12 groups of 4 teams, the Americans strangely found themselves in Group D with Paraguay and Australia. While the Giants will be beating the living daylights out of each other in the knockout stages, the United States has secured a walk in the park. The main thing is not to burn out from boredom before the playoffs. Someone from the coaching staff grins, looking at the tournament bracket drawn on a whiteboard. 60 matches on home soil are the foundation for a total rotation plan. The arena can afford to keep Fuller and Balogun and Tyler Adams vacuum-packed, releasing them only when the opponent can barely move from fatigue and jet lag. Politics, which had previously hindered them, have now become a mathematical guarantee of success. They simply outplayed the world before the ball even touched the center circle. Diplomatic tensions have become an invisible bulletproof vest, and when the decisive moment arrives, it will turn out there's no defense against a crowbar, especially if that crowbar is wielded by a Washington bureaucrat. The stands in Dallas or Los Angeles will be noisy, but in the quiet of government corridors, the fate of the cup was decided much earlier. While studio experts draw arrows on interactive screens, discussing the intricacies of transitioning from defense to attack, something else is happening behind the closed doors of the Atlanta Training Center. Hidden there is the ultimate champion killer, a tactical model that no one in their right mind would dare use. This isn't a secret player. It's a mathematically calculated diplomatic trap. The maneuvering of the Washington cabinet has paved the way for what will soon be called the most monumental scandal in World Cup history, and it has nothing to do with referee bribery. The new format of the 2026 tournament, with 12 groups of 4 teams turning the calendar into an endless labyrinth, has become a veritable group of life for Americans. Behind the scenes at FIFA, this decision has sparked not just gossip, but a hushed murmur. "Have you seen the draw?" asks one of the administrators, nervously twirling his accreditation card on a lanyard. "Group D, Paraguay and Australia. Are they serious?" "Seriously," his colleague replies, lazily stirring his cold tea with a plastic spoon. This isn't a draw. This is an escort to the knockout stages. This sensational revelation confirms the hosts, as if on cue, skillfully avoided meeting the football monsters in the early stages. While Argentina or France are scorching the grass trying to advance, the United States team will be systematically building up its strength. What are the organizers hiding behind this incredible stroke of luck? The answer is simple: total control over logistics. Playing 60 of the 80 matches on home soil isn't a gesture of hospitality. It's a secret plan to manage the opponent's physical exhaustion. Remember Qatar? 2022. Arena stands by the window, watching as the sprinklers soak the pitch. Then our flanks died by the 60th minute. The legs felt like cast iron bollards. This time we'll freeze them. The assistant replies, still staring at his tablet. Literally. The bitter experience of the past, when a complete burnout and a collapse in midfield destroyed the fans' hopes, forced the staff to resort to trickery. Today, the team's true strength is carefully disguised under the guise of green youth. The players appear for interviews in wrinkled shirts, confuse the names of their opponents, and they act as if they'd just escaped from a university lecture. This shocking tactic is designed to lull the intelligence service's vigilance. Let the analysts from Europe write in their reports: green, inexperienced, tactically immature. While rumors of a possible boycott of the tournament due to political differences swirl in the press, this only adds to the anger in the locker room. Political pressure has become a powerful factor in internal motivation, that invisible drug that no test can detect. The revelation of the staff's true intentions is frightening in its cynicism. The Life Group is used not for victories, but as a sterile testing ground for preserving the freshness of key players. Listen, what if the Australians just dig in their heels in defense? Asked the reserve goalkeeper, tying his boots. They won't dig in their heels, someone from the coaching staff blurts out. They'll fly in from Sydney across 14 time zones. Their brains will be like jelly while ours are finishing their morning smoothies. The whole world is watching as the United States masterfully manipulates the format to secure an advantage other countries can't even dream of. This home court chess match turns each of the 12 game segments into a stepping stone to the final. The power hidden behind the mask of youth is building up, ready to descend at the decisive moment on the exhausted favorites, who by then will be dreaming only of a soft bed and an end to endless flights. This isn't pure sport. It's a logistical execution disguised as a football festival. The stands in Dallas will smell of popcorn and excitement. But the outcome of this battle was decided in the quiet of offices, where the number 60 was preferred to the number 20. The corridors of the State Department smell of stale coffee and stale paper. Someone in a corner office spilled Diet Coke right on a folder marked for official use only. But even that didn't distract anyone from their computer screens. The United States team's tactics at the 2026 World Cup weren't just a sports scheme. They were an attempt to hide a champion killer behind a screen of bureaucratic red tape. All this artificial comfort of a life group and frankly cynical games with the calendar are unfolding against the backdrop of a scandal that makes European officials' left eyelids twitch. While broadcast revenues are being divvied up behind closed doors, critics around the world are literally screaming their heads off, trying to reach the heavens. They are demanding a total boycott. They say Washington's visa policy has become a hefty club used to batter 12 unwanted countries, turning the football field into a political battering ram. Listen, whispers the intern, adjusting his askew tie and trying to remove a stuck paper clip from his stapler. What if they really don't come? You know, those on the list of 12. So ours will go through without breaking a sweat, the senior analyst interrupts, without turning around. FIFA will remain silent anyway. They have their own agenda. And FIFA is indeed silent. This demonstrative indifference, when all you can hear in the empty conference room is a fly swatting against the glass, has become the best stimulant for the national team players. External pressure has melted into a thick inner rage, an anger that the favorites from Europe and South America don't even suspect. Insiders, those smoking in the backyard of the Atlanta training facility, confirm the fans' hatred only spurred the team on. They want to make the biggest breakthrough in history, and they will do it with a cold heart. The chronology of this transformation appears frighteningly systematic. It all began back in 2018, with the first timid and secretive steps of sports diplomacy. By 2026, this core had become monolithic. What seemed like a fatal weakness at the 2022 World Cup, all those lapses in rotation, the lack of substitutions, and the physical burnout after the 60th minute, has now turned into a carefully disguised strength. The secret training plan has finally converged, uniting disparate elements into a system. Tyler Adams, with his anti-championship tactics, is no longer just a holding midfielder. He's a breakwater against which attacks will crash. Gio Reyna, who can spend half an hour discussing the length of studs on his boots or the quality of the pitch with the staff, actually controls the rhythm of the game like an experienced conductor. All of this is securely hidden behind an administrative shield. This explosive mixture of a thirst for revenge, for criticism, and cold calculation should lead to a place in the quarterfinals. It is there that the tournament's biggest sensation is brewing. Fuller and Balogun, whose statistics have recently only evoked smirks from the experts, will finally drop his mask. He was hidden. He was saved for one specific moment, while he was bored on the bench or practicing boring shots at an empty net. While the world cries out about the injustice of visa barriers, Balogun will calmly deliver that fatal blow. One short swing, a dry sound, and the ball is in the net. This entire multi-year spectacle of political chaos and diplomatic subterfuge was merely a drawn-out prelude to the moment when yet another titled favorite would head home to pack his bags. This isn't just sport. It's a triumphant journey, paved through offices and training pitches, where every step was calculated before the first ball hit the grass.